while people have a little time to come in. Okay, so let me go in and do that. And this, let's see, it takes a couple of minutes. I mean, a few seconds. Yeah, here it is. We're on. All right, so I'm going to tag you. Boom. And boom. Here we go. Okay, so you are tagged as of now. And I'll share it to the other Soulogy platforms. Boom. 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 Okay. All right. Here we go. Second show of the day. It's going to be a pretty good run the next few days. I'm going to be reporting from the front line of the apocalypse, the great unveiling here in Nayarit, Mexico, where there's physical turmoil and chaos in the street, but we all know that this is where we birth higher frequencies, higher creations, and we all been tapped on the shoulder to come at this time to take this to a higher level. We can't forget that we are soul, and we cannot be hurt. We're eternal. How can a soul survive if it never dies? You know. But I think we're as my intel, my understanding and awareness has come in these very important last few weeks. I would even say since the solstice, that we're not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. You're going to be here. We're going to go in our bodies, and so that's kind of where we're at. Anyway, thank you everybody for coming in for the second show of the day. We got a new friend in the house. We're going to get to know him. Thank you for your consistent love, support, contributions that allow us to keep doing this every single day. We're still a little bit banned on Facebook. I'm going to have to upload the last show because they wouldn't let me have it come on. I appealed it, and they approved it, and so now this one's broadcasting on Facebook and on YouTube as well. We have a new friend in the house. Let me put up his name so everybody can see it. Oh, he's going by Joshua here. So also known as Yahshua Eternalwind. Welcome to the show, brother. We've never met each other. We had some correspondences, and I'm happy that we can come together and get to know somebody new. So welcome. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for having me.
So I think you're up in what, Idaho? Is that where you're at? Where are you at?
I'm apparently in New York right now.
Oh, you're in New York. Okay.
Yeah, I was based out of Idaho for a couple years, but I'm in New York right now, and I've been doing a lot of traveling this last couple years.
Yeah. Oh, I can relate to that. Believe me.
You know, doing the grit work like everybody else.
So are you in New York City or New York State?
Um, I'm in the Catskill
Oh, okay.
Mountains.
There you go. There you go. That.
So it's interesting where I am because there's a place about I would say 20 minutes from here called Sam's Point, and there's like these crystal caves here, and right on that point of Sam Point, actually, that node intersects with Egypt. It's a straight line directly to the Giza Plateau.
Yeah, there's. I think for all the internal and individual activations and coding coming online, almost like a circuit is going off in our bodies, is happening on the earth as well. There's so many people that have been put into certain geographical locations over the last couple of years, even more so than before, including myself. I never thought I'd be here, but here I am.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it seems like things are ratcheting up. And I've been saying this for a while, that this expansion that we're having, which is obviously the path, the trajectory, the timeline, is obviously almost in a way bigger than all of us, but driven by us, is going to continue to expand. But at the same time, it seems like this distortion will continue to increase as well. And this is really, I think, where the rubber meets the road. I don't know what you're seeing up there. It's probably more of a peaceful environment up there. But what are you picking up in
Uh,
terms of where we're at right now?
yeah, it's a lot of density here. So it's been interesting because I've been doing a lot of traveling. So I've been kind of going to the main bigger vortexes that doesn't hold much density. But recently, about 3 months ago, I was called back to New York, which is my birthplace. And New York, these grid lines are just so much density in these grid lines, you know, and it's only about an hour from the city, so you could still feel New York City coming through this entire land structure. And my guides were telling me to come to New York, and I didn't want to come, you know, so I'm like, nah, you know, I'm not going there. There's nothing there for me, you know, because I wanted to, you know, experience more of the um, light areas. And then my brother ended up, he was moving from Idaho back to New York, and he ended up having, on his way, he ended up having a car accident. And I was in Arizona at the time. So he totaled his truck and he had no way to get to New York and he had a bunch of belongings with him. So I'm like, yeah, bro, I'm gonna come get you and I'll bring you to New York. So that's how my guides ended up getting me here because I didn't want to come originally. But so I've been here ever since. But ever since I've been here, it kind of brings into perspective of um, you know, you can't be the light. The light is not useful in the light. You know, like you have to kind of bring the light, you know, to the density. Like that is the purpose of why we're here. You know, and so I was brought back here to kind of hold that node, to hold this light here, which is a very dense place. Like even the lands here are like you could hear them crying out, like very, very dense. So I'm being called to kind of speak on a little bit of my life journey when I was so-called born, because the codes that's within um, coming into this human form, coming into this form is very well um, you know, the template. It's what we're all activating together, all the ones that are awakening into their true self. So when I was born here in New York in the same area, um, and my body, the body that I have now, my bones they didn't develop like its normal strength when I was a kid. So at 1 years old, um, I started to break bones. Like when I started to walk, um, my legs would break. So the first bone I ever broke in my body was my femur bone, and I was playing with my cousin at the time, and then ever since then, my bones were just like breaking, especially like my legs. And the doctors and no one couldn't figure out what was going on. Um, so my parents and stuff went through a lot of things because like they thought, you know, I was being abused and so on. And from myself experiencing that, it was really intense because for me it felt like I was kind of spiritually like fighting like some unseen forces, and I was always experiencing this pain, you know, this breaking, right? Um, which I come to find out it was like I was so sensitive. Um, I was able to feel everything around me. So at the time, I wasn't so much aware of my emotional intelligence and energy as I am now. So in order to release that energy, I had to pretty much break bones to release that energy, to release that those emotions which were stored in the land, which was stored in the grids and the collective energy. Um, so I'm back here now. But what I come to find out is really embracing the awe, right? Like um, full spectrum. The thing that hits me the most is that during all, I mean, I have like, I broke so many bones I can't even count. I don't even remember how many, like numerous times a year, like I would break bones and I would be out of school and not be able to go to school and just sit there. But in those spaces, being in the hospital and being in this like the most pain, that I ever experienced, it was those spaces that I found peace. And I remember it was very hard for me to admit it. And my home was chaos too, like growing up and being in a narcissistic family, that was chaos too. So I remember when I would be laying in the hospital bed, I'm in so much pain, but I would be able to like kind of find this peace outside of all of that, right? And no matter what I've been through, it never made me bitter. And I remember telling myself, like, I'd rather stay here. Like, I didn't want to go out into the world. I didn't want to come home because I like was able to find this space within me. Um, so it really correlates with what's happening now. We're seeing, right, all this pain. And it was interesting because when I was closing my eyes and I tuned within, I found this peace. But then when I opened my eyes and came back and I attached to the story in my body, I would feel this pain. I would feel this storyline is your bones is breaking, you're diseased, whatever that story is playing out to be. Um, so I feel like we're even connecting today to anchor that template, right? To remind us that, yes, we're finding ourselves in the story, but we're not the story. And we're not even these bodies, right? And it's like full spectrum. Like you can't really access this place without fully feeling it. So, like, I couldn't find this peace without fully feeling myself at the most dense level where like my bones were shattering
Yeah.
and anchor it here at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing doing 4,500 shows these last few years, and the stories are all superficially, from the human perspective, different on the surface, but at the core, there are many, many commonalities. And I think
Hmm.
what you're saying is true. You mentioned a couple things. It's the entire spectrum. You mentioned another thing about closing your eyes, which is your version, right, of finding that place. For some people, it might be out of body experiences or dimensional experiences or meditations or communions. But the fact remains that what we would refer to, and which is what you're talking about, the feeling it, okay, the trauma, what we associated with trauma, the uncomfortableness, the pain, the suffering, the dark nights of the soul, and there's been more than one because each time you broke something, that was one. That's
Hmm.
been the catalyst. That's been the chaos of our greater awareness. And so there seems to be the third thing that you said too, which I've seen a lot, is especially in the last few months. I've seen something different since last summer on this show, and that is people coming on in their full humanity and their full multidimensionality, not with an agenda, not with an ego, or let's say lessening ego, lessening judgment, more of a neutrality, no BS, just, what you see is what you get, kind of a transparency. People talk about vulnerability, but I think it's moving to transparency. That's where the real power is. But anyway, to sum up what you were
Mhm.
saying, you were talking about that you got to feel it. And then you said, we're not this body. But I've understood since I rewoke in 2011 the incredible, consistent, 100% paradoxical teaching method of the universe. And so you're right. I am soul. I am not just this body you know as Todd. However, in order for me to continue to expand in this incredible experience that we're all gaining more insight to as the days go on, I must be in my body. My body is, as my last guest said, who's very tapped in, Casey, we're taking our bodies with us. And I've heard that for many, many years. But as you
Mhm.
know, and as I know, as we become into a greater awareness, these words and connotations are taking on broader meanings, more multidimensional meanings, more meanings of the higher band of frequencies. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's an interesting paradox. I am not just this body, but at the same time, in order for me to maximize my potential moment by moment, and there's only one moment, right? The eternal
Mhm.
moment,
Yeah.
I've got to be in my body. I've got to be present with my body. And that means so much to the individual awareness and expansion, but also our contribution to the collective and to each other. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's the multiple truths, right? The two truths being true, but also um, without canceling each other out. Um, for me, like I just like to speak on the way I experience and the way I perceive because um, it's hard for me to take on the perspectives of the world in a sense. It's like coming strictly through coherence, which it's even like, is that even happening within the body? And for me, like going through these experiences, like at some times I remember like because I still never played it safe. Like even though I knew like I was a glass bowl, I still like lived at the edge. I still rode motorcycles and dirt bikes and so many and built houses and did so many things. But some of my accidents was very tragic where like I broke over 14, 15 bones at one time and collapsed like lungs and ribs and like so many things. But in these experiences, I remember always coming back and like my awareness was always more expanded like when I came back to this place in time. But I remember always asking myself or telling myself that I was meant to be here. And it's kind of funny how you say we're not going anywhere. We're meant to be here, which then made me question, am I actually in my body? Like, I don't think many people question how they're perceiving that. They kind of perceive that their soul is in their body or that they're inside of a body or inside of some kind of vehicle. It's kind of the way they perceive it. It's even like people perceive Earth in many different ways in a multi-dimensional way. Um, and some are saying like we're on an Earth. Some are saying like it's flat, we're in a dome, and so on and so on. Um, but I also kind of see Earth as like we're not on it. or even in it. We're like projecting, we're projecting outwards onto the screen, you know. So is the soul really truly in the body, right? And it's interesting because if we were truly in the body, how could we be aware of that we have a body?
Well,
Which we know this is all happening at one time. Which it's all like you're being aware from many different spectrums of it. So I think like Jesus' teaching was like one of the things that were like still unfolding to this day. Like the seed that he came to plant, I think it's like still unfolding. Like we're the consciousness of or the awareness that was seated on this planet is still just now kind of birthing that new creation. And that's what we're seeing um, happening right now.
well, I mean, that's a mouthful. There's well, I mean, what I'm noticing, one of the advantages I've had, because I got the greatest job in the multiverses, even though I don't consider it a job, is to be able to speak to mirrors of myself and each other day after day after day after day. And over the last few months, it's almost as if I'm speaking to the same person. They're just shape shifting. Okay. Uh, and
Oh,
and so a lot of what I've noticed too is everything kind of changed after 2024. Last year was kind of a getting acclimated year. We're swimming with the current now. We're not swimming against it. This is what I received, and then also kind of heard other people talk in this fashion. But that the greatest gift, the greatest blessing, the greatest code, the greatest opportunity and potential is in the moment, and is now coming from the boots on the ground. It's coming from conversations
mhm.
like this. It's coming through getting past our vulnerability, facing ourselves, cutting the bullshit with ourselves, not externalizing things, not blaming things. The shame, guilt, all this BS goes away. And there's a real newness to the codes that are exchanging with each other, because we have two things in common. One, I am soul, which we also have this in common. These are just my words, but we have this in common with the trees, with the plant kingdom, elementals, galactics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what makes our connection a bit unique is we've both been subjected to the human conditioning, which is far greater
Exactly.
than what we thought, especially as the days go by. And what I'm really talking about here is, say you could look at it different ways. Mass mind control. You could look at it as a commandeered realm that is being engineered, you might say, at this leg of the game, whereby those things that cannot create, they can only produce distortion and present in a fashion that then convinces us, and we start to project what they want us to project, right? So this is kind of what we're breaking through. But now, one of the things that's really come through in the last few weeks with other people, as I've talked to them in my own experiences at the beach every night, has been the need to know, the need to be right.
Hmm.
My soul came in and said, when we get to the end of this thing, nobody's going to be able to say, I told you so. The landscape and the reality is changing so quickly that the things that we use to construct our thinking, our lives, etc., are falling away faster and faster every day. And it's almost like at times for me, as I walk through this town every day, that I'm walking in what I would refer to as kind of a lucid dream, to where I'm seeing in the physicality and the non-physicality the higher frequencies coming in. Okay, and how this
Hmm.
works, I don't think anybody knows. I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen. And when they say they do, I start running the other way now. or this is how this is what's going on, and so on. Like it's so crazy, and it is a
Yeah,
paradox in the sense that, like, this is what my soul told me last week. I was telling my friend on the previous show, came in at the beach at the certain point of the communion, I guess when it kind of reached its end, said, you realize that how the world goes is up to you. So in that micro, macro, as within, without kind of thing that we don't understand, that I said yes. And so to me, what that was saying was, how you see the world, how you think it is how it will go. So here I am in the middle of this chaos, and they're burning cars and burning buses and blocking highways, and people are in danger. I have to sit with this now. I'm here for a reason, like you're there in the Catskills for a reason. I'm here to maintain this frequency and to keep stepping forward in that perfecting timeline, that perfecting original timeline blueprint that we all created together, as we kind of untangle from whatever the hell this is. Okay, but not to be
yeah,
overtaken by the power of suggestion of the movie script. So that's a long-winded way of saying
exactly.
that's a long-winded way of
Yeah,
saying we're in control of this, and it's our humility and our integrity that is going to drive this
yeah,
thing.
yeah. You just literally opened it up just now. Like my ears just exploded because that's exactly it, right? It was, and I'm not even going to say exactly it, but that is a good point to come into and rest into because the way the Holy Spirit works is the Holy Spirit is like this anointing that is like washing our minds or washing our spirit from the conditioning so we could see, um, think and be in our hearts and think pure, and that's the entire process. So it was like when I was descending into this body, there were so many conditions that were misidentifying with love, that like every structure that tried to hold me down, it was like I was breaking through, and like every bone that was broken was like symbolizing another program. Break, 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 another program. And when you really come into these lucid spaces and you and allow the Holy Spirit to kind of take over your life, you begin to notice that you operate from the space that you don't know. You're just present. You don't know what's ahead of you. All you have is this trust. You're not operating from conditioned prediction. You're not operating from none of this. You're literally operating from trust and presence in the moment. And even though, like I say, the Holy Spirit was telling me, you need to go to New York, I'm saying, why? There's no reason why. Just go. They're not, the Spirit is not giving me no kind of further explanation of why it has to be, which I kind of ignored for a little bit. And then that situation happened with my brother, and I acted in love because he was in a bad situation. And I'm like, let me go help my brother, right? And I got here anyways. So that's a powerful point, man, because I don't think a lot of people really are in that space yet. And I mean, I'm not going to say a lot of people because it's only just us, but that's what we're working towards, is to exist within the paradoxes, and we're breaking through them all without getting wrapped up in the conditioned story of um, them versus me. If you kind of tap deeper into the Gnostic teachings and the teachings of Yeshua, when he did his fast and he did his 40 days and 40 nights, it wasn't that he became the enemy and 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 overcame the darkness, is that the darkness became his friend. And then you have these scriptures where it kind of leads us to these spaces like, um, love your enemies. Like, it's all these parables that are teaching us a way to how to stay in the spirit that's not bound by conditioning. Not too long ago, I think it was the other week, I woke up with this name Judas and in my head, and I kind of grew up obviously in a lot of my family was into religion, and I got a bunch of pastors and deacons and apostles in my family, like close relatives. But I just kind of like I broke. I was breaking free from them. I couldn't really get with it, in the sense, even though I loved it, the presence, but I still couldn't come to a place to identify Jesus as an identity. Like, I couldn't put him in this confinement like most people do, which is like their perspective on what he was, what he was doing, why he was here, and so on. I think that the spirit was so great that we couldn't put it in no kind of description. We couldn't describe it. And I think that's exactly what you're saying is when people start to try to describe what's happening, you're already like, okay, like, stop it. Like, why do we even have to do that?
Well, I mean,
Like,
yeah, I mean, I think that's a result, obviously, of the conditioning and the programming. This has been
yeah.
we've been creating unconsciously. Now we're creating consciously, and I feel like what's happening now, and it's getting. I was telling a friend the other day, I had like this experience where I went to recently. I went to the center of the core of the Mother Earth, and at the core of Mother Earth was the eternal womb. Okay. Now, this is a
Mhm.
part of her that she's showed me before that she says, I don't even know what it is. And what she means by that is that's where the new creations come from, and it's not about what it is, but what it takes to enter it. So there was like this
Mhm.
plank, like, in the pirate days when they'd have you walk the plank and then fall in the ocean, or a diving board. Somebody's got to go in first. And so it was walk the plank, but the real message was it's time to cut the bullshit. And this is only between me and the universal. It's not about me telling my friends or convincing them or they convince me.
Yeah.
It's time to walk the talk. And what that means is thoughts are things. And so even these connotations that we have that are subtle and we're still coming into consciousness with them, they're like everything else that's coming up to be seen again until we can neutralize it, or however you want to put it. The same goes for what we
Mhm.
think and what we say. So, for example, I've heard for years on this show people come on and say, those people aren't awake. Well, my soul comes in and says, how the fuck do you know? How do you know or
Exactly.
not know that everyone's not beating at the same exact vibration? It just doesn't look that way. Now, that could be wrong, that could be right. But the point is, if I see the world like right now where I'm at, if I see the chaos that's in Puerto Vallarta coming closer and closer to me, and they start to infiltrate the streets, just like in our dark nights of the soul, that's when we reach down, and that's when we find a greater expanse of our infinite, eternalness, right? That's
Eternal
where we
presence.
find more illumination. That's where we illuminate a higher frequency and affect the field around us, and all those things, i.e., quantum entanglement. So I think there's something about the human part of this, because this isn't just the human beings. This is, as we all know, this is all the kingdoms. It's all universal. It's all coming into a universal correction, an alignment, if you will, based on the choices that we've made and the evolution that we've arrived to. But the point being, what I think about you is very important. Because even if you're strong, like Samson, okay, energetically
Mm-hmm.
speaking, you might have a
Mm-hmm.
little wormhole here or one here, from ancestral lineage, traumatic experiences, whatever the case is. I might penetrate that. My thought of, oh, he's not very cool, might penetrate it, and make it to be a perceived reality in this illusion, right? So it's important, I think, for us to begin to look at each other where we've been the most dense. Because if you think about the earth, what is the most dense part of the earth? It is us. It's not the animals, it's not the elementals, it's not the ocean beings, it's it's us. And that's okay, because if you think about your story, and I know it must have been very painful, you know, but the metaphoric and literal alignment of it, the story of what have you become? What are you? What made you? Okay? These are the things that have made us. We are the ones that went down deep into the BS and the fuckery and all that stuff. And it's all coming out now, right? And so,
Mm-hmm.
it's like what you said earlier, it's the full spectrum. How can we divorce ourselves from any part of this experience if we are the experience itself? And I know a lot of people struggle with this, with the whole good and evil thing, which may be very
Yeah,
applicable.
exactly.
It may be very applicable from the eyes of this particular realm, but we're from above this or around this. It's a part of our composition, and that's part of the mind fuck, is we believe it's 99% of our consciousness when it's really not. But it's also, even though we might look at it in a multidimensional sense, that the human aspect of us is a redheaded stepchild, the slow one, the one that takes longer. But when the reality is we're at the front of that wake that the soul's making as it's traversing the universe and expanding, it's by the final choice of the human aspect bringing it into alignment with everything else. And I'm a big believer. I don't see any other way. It's an all or nothing proposition. How am I going to have oneness with the world if I can't have it with somebody else? And I'll give you an example. I won't go into
Yeah.
details. I received a message about you, okay, and it wasn't nice, right? I had to go into my soul and say, the show goes on. This person is the same person as the one that sent the message, is the same person that the one that did this and the one that did that and the one that did this. I am looking at myself everywhere, and I can find mostly myself in other human beings. I can obviously find them in animals.
Mm-hmm.
I can find them in other energy complexes, physicality, non-physicality. But I think our greatest opportunity comes with each other, moment by moment. Like Joseph Campbell said, there is no time, there is no space. Eternity has no time and space. If you can't get it here, you're not going to get it anywhere. And I think the time has come for us to look at each other as ourselves and put our efforts there and stop talking about it and just do it, And that's the last thing I will say. The other thing that's coming online
Mm-hmm.
now is the realization that whether I'm in my bedroom by myself with the door closed, communing or communing with you or a group or whatever the case is, when I shine, the world shines. And when I'm thinking in prejudiced manners or biased manners, then that's the way the world's going to go. And I think we're getting all the extremes now, so it's going to be extremely important for us, like you said, not to get attached to the story, because the story is
Mm-hmm.
getting crazy, right? In so many
Crazy.
different ways.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's the same thing as the parables and the stories within Scripture, where Yeshua spent most of his time with the poor ones and the poverty ones and the ones in sin. It was because it was speaking of, we have to learn to see God in everybody, every person, no matter how much sin they have. We have to learn to see God in everybody because it's the aspect of ourselves. As I was getting into that one story was when I was sleeping and I woke up like in the middle of the night with this name Judas,
Mm.
Judas in my head, and I like woke up Like it wasn't even me doing it, and I just wrote this name down and fell back to sleep. And when I woke up, I'm like, Judas, why did I write that down and wake up doing that? And I started to kind of look into this name and see how this character fitted in the stories, in the scriptures. And if you look into the Gnostic teachings, Judas was the one that handed Yeshua over. So he was like the great betrayal. Uh, and the whole world demonized him, right? But what was interesting was that Yeshua forgave him already before he even handed him over because he knew that was part of the destiny. He knew that was part of the great script. So it's uh it's like once you understand that you are beyond the identifications of your body. Because again, I believe it's not even a belief, it's a gnosis. Like I know that every problem that arises in our life is because we're misidentifying ourselves. Soon as we identify with the thing as good, bad, separate, dark, light, we're separating ourselves and we're actually identifying ourselves. But Yeshua had a way to where he never identified himself with the abusers, the prostitutes, the ones in poverty, the thief, and all these things. He never identified himself with it, which is the saying, I see the light in you, which is the light in me. Um, and then that name Sophia, when I was going through this Judas name, I believe people are just using names to describe a process. Like when they speak of Jesus, I think Jesus is not like an identity, but Jesus, Yeshua, Yahuwah is just a process. It's a process that we all must go through because he seeded it, or not even he. It's the seeding of our full potential. So like this name Sophia, when I was looking at the Judas name, Sophia came through in the Gnostic teachings, and they were saying how the Gnostics believed that Sophia made a decision without her counterpartner, which created the created world, which was the world that people that we are so-called stuck in the mind, which is they called it the created world. It wasn't the divine world. So it was super interesting how that all came to play because when I fully step into the spirit, there's no me even choosing. It's like just happening. It's like just intelligence doing it's on its own. Even when I believe that I'm choosing, I'm not choosing. So even when I was breaking my legs and I'm over there like, what's going on? And I believe I might have believed my ego believed that I chose to get up and keep walking, and I didn't get paralyzed and so on, and I'm still walking. Out of all the things that have happened to me, I realized today that I never had a choice of any of it. I didn't have a choice if I got up and kept moving, or if I stayed on the ground. It literally was a surrender of no longer identifying with the story. It was always was. It was always is the projection of light. It is what is causing. I guess it's causing the destruction or the dissolving of the mind, because the more light that comes in, the more of what the Gnostics say Sophia created the created word without her counterpart, meaning that she made a decision without consulting with him, which created which was desire, which created all these things in the mind.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, we could unpack this for weeks. You know, I've been an avid reader of books up until 15 years ago, and then since then the internet, I just use that. But one of the things that's been a huge interest to me since my early 20s has been the Gnostics. So I'm very familiar with the
Yeah,
Nag Hammadi, and I'm very familiar with the Dead Sea Scrolls. I'm very familiar with what I would consider the metaphoric explanations. Okay, now part of about 25% of those texts is dialogue and commentary and narrative involving what you're talking about, the archons. Okay, just to give it a
yeah,
name, the influence or the energy that we are basically opposite of, you might say. And this is the story that you're speaking of. So this
hmm,
is important because to your point, if you look at it as a whole, then you start to realize that every program, every condition, every storyline, identification, attachment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, is all coming from the same place, which is this space that you're talking about. We can talk the demiurge or whatever we want to talk it. Everything in the world is upside down. So if that's the
exactly.
case, you know, if that's the case, and we're coming into a level of awareness and consciousness that seems to have many cyclical implications. You know, see the Kali Yuga, see the different texts that point to this time. It's a huge field of information, and so I don't know. For me, there seems to be, to a greater and a greater extent, this place that we're arriving to, I'm arriving to, and I guess I would explain it like this. When you know everything, you realize you know nothing. And when you know nothing, you know you have access to everything. So it's like even the stories of our shared experiences that got us to this point, even those stories, we don't know. We don't know. What we do know is we have the contrast of the opposing sides and the different opinions, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we have all this information. It's with us. We're not going to be attached to anything behind us anymore. And I think that we're being asked to even let go of those things that are folklore and myth and et cetera. And I believe that's all true stuff, okay? I believe these things
Yeah.
happen. Giants walk the earth, et cetera, et cetera. What's important is the information that we have in our present state of mind as we become more present with ourselves, and therefore our existence that we share together in this far beyond the human comprehension complexity that in its truth is a very simple, profound truth, and it runs by very simple universal laws. And I think the most basic one is, without ethics or moral considerations, because they don't even apply, is what goes around comes around. And if you look at the different, and I studied them all in my 20s, the different religions, every single religion has their own phrasing for the golden rule, which is really, what was he saying? To me, he wasn't saying just do unto others as you would have them do on to yourself. I would add, no matter how they treat you. Okay? Like we're
Hmm.
talking about energy here. We're creating
Yeah.
this thing. It's very important. I mean, if you look for, you could take almost any subject. You could see some of the narratives coming out of the presented narrative or history of World War II. Was Hitler the bad guy? Who really won the war? All these different elements, opinions, stories, the recounting of these things, the retelling of these things. This is all information for us to refine our own discernment. We wouldn't have the level of evolution and awareness that we have if we didn't have the cataclysmic events and the antagonistic energies in our personal lives and as a group. And I'm talking everything from bef- before the Orion Wars, before the crazy wars in the cosmos, and everything else, including the last 2,000 years. What's really gone on? What's really happened? And that's another thing
Hmm.
that I feel like is kind of in that vein of when you know nothing, you know everything, and that is to accept everything as possible. I don't see how we can proceed, at least for myself, by becoming stagnant and flatlining. Every step of the way, it requires more openness, and that is that faith, and that is that love, or whatever this thing that endures, that really is who we are, you know. But this by
Hmm.
many different accounts has been many different accounts. Dolores Cannon, Edgar Casey, so many people that we know in these communities talk about this is the toughest planet in the multiverse. This is the grand experiment. Like, we didn't come all this way for nothing. And this is what I think is the message that's going to be coming through on a personal basis in our personal communion as the days go by, as the chaos and distortion play out, that we will hold this line, this golden road, and it will begin to supersede any and all things. And you might say that the lower frequencies or the heavier densities are left behind, and maybe they stay in a realm of their own consciousness, and those souls or whatever that choose to live there and learn from there will do that. But we're not on the precipice or on the cusp. We're in this now, and it really, to
Yeah.
me, is coming down to that whole, you know, the humility, the integrity, and the thing that's assisting us here is people are starting to see the truth frequency. They can feel it. And
They can
this is, I think,
feel
a big reason why you're seeing so much diverse, energetic presentations and the geopolitical and all that stuff, is so people can have more to think about, more colors to paint from their energetic palette as they create their own life, and we do this together in collaboration. So
it.
it's
Hmm.
you know, the Gnostic wisdom is to me, at least in my own experience, has for me a galactic connection, and it was a
Exactly.
continuation of a certain energy complex or something like that. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I do think it's not a coincidence that the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Nag Hammadi was all discovered around the time Roswell happened, and so many other things started to change. You know, the universe has a way of always showing up, regardless of what's
Yeah.
been put out there. And COVID's a perfect example.
Yeah. And it's the process. It's all talking about processes of energy, which again, you landed on the COVID, um, that took us all deep inward, right? Like we all had to go inward at this same exact time, which questioned everything. And it kind of wasn't even about like making us think more. It kind of was like we could rest, right? Like we don't have to do so much. We don't have to externally force a life. Like we could just retrieve and rest and allow the process to happen, you know? And you see that happening with our bodies because now our bodies are going through a process. You know, they're shifting. People are coming up with, you know, all these things are coming to the surface. People are coming up with what they call labels and diseases and things like that. But they're trying to stop and camp out on the identification of it. And if you let go of the condition and you don't camp out in what you're identifying with, you would realize that this is only a process. And the more, and I believe that's what we're here for. We're here to remind our brothers and sisters and the people around us, our family, because they're all going to go through it now at rapid rates. It's like the domino just got overturned. We have to remind them that this is the process, not to identify with, oh, you have an autoimmune disease, oh, you have kidney cancer, and identify, just allow this process because this is how it showed on to me. Like I was 1 years old, but no one couldn't figure out what was wrong with me, and nobody couldn't help me. Had to just trust the process, and through this entire process, I'm still here. Like you said, we're not going anywhere. Even the times that I thought I'm like, I'm not gonna make it, and if I do make it, I'm not gonna be able to walk by time I'm 20. This and this and that. All these stories come up, but the universe, God, Source, Christ had a it it's had a different destiny. It's something happening that is beyond um, what we could think about, what we could camp out on and continue to identify with, even though, yes, we could identify with it as it's happening and sing through it and drum through it and do art through it and bring those things forward. But the destination and the final product of the art or of the song was never what was important. It was always the creation of that song and the process that it took and what it came through. And we see this now, and like that's why you see like what I see now, and a lot of practitioners, they're kind of falling back and they're like, what do I even do now? Because like so many people are kind of trying to they're trying to create a end, a destination. I heal you and then you're free and you're this and you're that, instead of just kind of coming into the space that like we're here, like let's just ride out this process, like, and let's enjoy it while we're here. Like some days we get bliss and some days we get pain. Sometimes we feel the grief and some days we don't. And now it's speeding up so much. You could wake up in bliss and then an hour later you're like, what was that? Like, where did that come from?
That's right. That's right. It's
you know?
it's interesting. I have a friend. If you know anything about Soulogy's history, Franco Di Nicola. We did 52 shows together, and he's the most tapped in, with the most memory intact. I'm talking other planets, whole nine yards, soul memories that I've ever met. And one of the things he was telling me, because he had a few drop-ins, what he called drop-ins, where he'd enter a body in previous generations and see what was happening. But this life he had here was his only full incarnation, start to finish. But so he was telling me that one of his periods of service in, let's just say, in the higher dimensions, was fielding souls that were leaving Earth, leaving one body and going to get decompressed and sent back if that's what they do, whatever. And he said that when somebody comes back, so to speak, or leaves, they are met by soul modan, soul family, that type of thing. And what they want to know is, how was it? And then the people will say, well, I had this beautiful romantic relationship, and I became a singer, or no. We don't want to know about that. We want to know about the pain and the suffering. See,
Yeah,
from
yeah.
us, you know what I mean? So like, and it's not. I mean, to me, it's double edged. One, to feel the sensory aspect of the human. Like I can remember Lemuria, it wasn't like this physical, but we had the ability to pop in and out. And the whole idea was to pop in and swim in a pond or eat some fruit or make love to your partner or whatever the case is. So it was a very physical thing. But the other part of it is where did the pain and suffering take you? I do a lot of writing over the years, poetry, rap, that type of thing. And I remember, as I spent my first 2 years of my awakening living on the streets in Houston by my own choice. And so there was a lot of writing done, there was a lot of communing done, and there was a lot of pain and suffering because many of us, if not all of us, not only had trauma, but successive traumas until we reached that point where we began to the illuminated seed within us began to really sprout. And I remember writing that, pain is my friend. Suffering has brought me peace. I can think of so many different instances. Like you said, you realize that, and I'll tell you this story. I probably shouldn't tell it because people will think I'm a wild ass, which I guess I have been at times. But during
That's
this
what we want.
during this time, I was about to leave town. I was in a hotel room. I've been sleeping in my car for 7 days and waiting on some money. And then I was going to leave town. And I get a knock on the door in a hotel, and 6 cops barged in and told me that they had a warrant for my arrest. And I thought, well, what? I didn't know anything about it. I was like, what the hell? So anyway, I remember I was handcuffed on the bed. They took my briefcase, they dumped it on the bed, and they're looking at my resume, which had a pretty distinguished corporate career with some pretty big names that you would be recognizable. And they're like saying to me, what happened to you? Like judging me. And in my head, I just started to bless them, right? I'm blessed. They don't know that my wife's sick. They don't know what my story is. They don't know my kids are in danger. They don't know this. I'm blessing your family. I'm blessing, and I just went into this whole thing. And it was one of the most powerful, energetic things that ever happened to me that had physical, repercussions, ripples from it. Like it was as if in that moment of apparent chaos, which you could say, like metaphorically, was a dark night of the soul, because it was. Was that I was able to reach my soul, and I had physical evidence beginning just a few minutes later, and that went on for a little while, of protection. What we might call protection. I don't really look at it that way because I feel like our field is our protection. But the point is, my field expanded, my illumination expanded by virtue of that, that humility, that integrity, that expression, that is the inspiration that we call art. Which is really what, the inspiration of what, of life, of God, of goddess, of ourselves, of, you know what I mean. So, yeah, I feel like that. As we keep going, it's not going to be the story attachment that we've had, but there will be a retelling of the stories, just as our elders, the Aboriginals, the Indigenous, and others have passed on through oral tradition the facts. You know what I mean? And it's not even the story, it's the energy of the story that impacts you. It's a multi-dimensional thing that we reduce to verbalization, which is kind of funny. And again, everything's upside down.
Yeah, I love that. I love it because through all of the chaos and the darkness that I experienced, um, again, I continue to stand here today and say I want the best for humanity. And it's interesting you mentioned that story because I grew up here in New York, and I also experienced um, the same things: police brutality. I experienced racism. I'm actually like mixed with many different breeds, so I always felt like I was in the middle of every identification. I couldn't really fully be in one or the other because this race wouldn't accept me fully, or this race wouldn't fully. Yes, I was some of this, but some of that. So I always found myself in between the lines. And right now, as a collective, we need to find ourselves in that neutrality. That's what they were telling me with the name Judas, because Judas, again, was a process. He was seen as a neutral spirit. He wasn't, even though the story came off like, oh, they cursed him and they shunned him and they labeled him as the demon and this and this. But his spirit, he was very neutral. He never accepted any of that. But also, um, he was kind of, that energy was kind of said, if you kind of tap into it, it was said that it would be the one that lasts the long haul. It would go to the end of time, because it was a very neutral energy. And that energy, that neutrality that we're learning to hold, I feel right now is the bridge to allow the souls to cross over to their next experience, that are not here for this ride. So some of the, I would say, the masters that are able to, that had, like, most of all the masters had these very hard experiences here in this incarnation. They did not, incarnate into, light and love. They incarnated into the densest of the densest places. And they're able to relate to almost every single human on this planet, like, naturally. They have the characteristics, like you said, like, I might connect to some people, and they might judge me, like, oh, he's kind of like, a New Yorker, and has, this different type of personality. He talks like this, he likes this and that. They might face judge me that way. But in my personal experience, I've always been super versatile, and I've always been able to connect to all beings, no matter if you came, whatever background you came from. If you came from being a drug dealer and you dealt drugs your whole life, um, versus you coming from a family that was pristine. Um, I kind of have the full spectrum. And it's not, I'm not saying me has it, but the process that I've been through just naturally has those codes. I remember, like, not too long ago, I did a retreat. I host retreats and things, sometimes. And one of the brothers was, he was a young brother, like 20 years old. He never been into, like, the inner, hoods of cities and things like that. But the place that I chose to do the retreat at was in Texas, and it was in Dallas, which was way different from where he was brought up in. And he was an Irish brother, but when he got there like a day before me. But he was super spiritual. He was coming into himself, but he's like, brother, I'm nervous here, and I'm like, why? What's going on? He's like, I don't know. I don't, like, trust this environment, right? And I couldn't figure out why. And I'm like, I'll be there, in a couple hours, just hang out, enjoy the area. But when I got there was a bunch of, the neighborhood we were in was all like African American. So I was like, oh, that's why he's uncomfortable, because he immediately was judging his surroundings.
Hmm.
And when I got there, and he felt more at ease. And I'm just someone that just talks to everybody. And as we're, like, interacting, going to places, like, I'm, like, kind of stopping people and talking to these people, and I'm like, hey, you don't got to be scared of these type of people, man. Some of these type of people are the most down to earth, coolest people you ever meet, man. But again, the conditioning, what the news shows us, we're automatically getting into these places of judgment. And I think this time, again, we're meant to hold that neutrality. I think there's going to be souls from all walks of life that have been through many processes that are going to be showing up. And they're not going to, they might not be the ones that we think they're going to be.
Hmm.
That shows up, and they have this masterful, they have this masterful ways about energy, and how to handle energy, and how to move through these difficult times. Um, because we're gonna need it. We're gonna need to be able to disconnect and just be neutral, and find that place within us. and sit back and watch the game. And that's like as simple as it gets, you know.
Well, there's a lot to be said for observing. You know what I mean? Uh, man, I'll tell you what. This has been it's been an interesting conversation with you, and I'm really glad that we got to connect. It is getting more and more apparent every day. Our confidence is growing every day. There's going to be I think what you're speaking about, it's again something we could go and talk for days about. But and it's kind of hard to encapsulate some of these things because of semantics, but prejudices,
Yeah,
biases, opinions, the need to be right, the ego.
all of it.
I'm even seeing what you're talking about in the light worker and starseed circles with a handful of topics that are put on the table right now, which are put on the table for the very reason that you're talking about. It doesn't matter
Hmm.
what the issue is. That's the fucking story. The issue is
That's the story.
the only relevant thing is that the stories are being put out there to create division among two or more people, right? So whether it's
Hmm.
what is the right way to ascend, or there's just so many things. And I love what you said about the practitioners sitting back going, because I've watched this happen since about late 2019 on the show, because a lot of the people I talked to were practitioners, where they were coming in the door going, I'm dropping my, process, my modality. I'm dropping my practice. I don't know what I'm going to do now. And this would only make sense, because
Yeah,
if we're moving on a path of what we are feeling and knowing, our own gnosis inside of us, what we really truly are, regardless of the traumas we still hold or the conditioning and programs we still have, then it's all about self-autonomy, self-responsibility, self-accountability, self-sourcing. We're the fucking med beds, That's the
yeah,
level of this,
exactly.
you know what I mean? So if that's the case, then that means I'm going to have to eliminate every identity I have. I'm going to have to eliminate every prejudice and bias. I can't even be sarcastic anymore. There are no
Yeah,
exceptions. It's an all or nothing proposition. And the reality is, the net of Mother catches us. We're eternal. But there is something bona fide and real about this opportunity and experience that we all share together that has never been felt before. And I feel this in my bones, and too many people I've talked to feel the same way. I've got to believe in us. I've got to have this confidence in us, because it feels real. It feels like gnosis. It feels like
you
soul,
have to.
you know?
You have to walk in that gnosis. It's like, people even they're messaging me, other practitioners, and they go, I say, what do you do? Who are you? Da da da. And they identify with what they do. I'm a healer. I do this. I do that. And I can't say I can't meet them there, but I just witness and I say, who are you healing? Because like um immediately if someone has a so-called issue, then we're identifying with an issue. And it's like, and it has to be something inside yourself that you're identifying with, which is not neutrality. So like it's only right that the practitioners in these modalities have to be kind of laid down, and you have to see everyone and everything as love already as is, no matter what process they're in, no matter what stage they're in. And I feel like there's, because of manifestation is happening so fast now, that there's going to be like some type of repercussion to the people that are actually trying to heal a thing. Like it's gonna backfire so fast.
All of us, because that's another way of saying, if you look at it,
Yeah,
I know karma was a distorted version of that universal law that we spoke about earlier. But the fact is, you're right. What goes around comes around, and it's happening faster and faster and faster. Look, we don't have to be a judge, jury, policeman. We don't have to be the town monitor, that points out all the
Exactly.
discrepancies, because the universal, the you, me, we, and it's going to take care of all that. And so this, what we're talking about is not for the faint of heart, not for any of us, because it's a real come to Jesus meeting, so to speak. You're having to eat some humble pie here, and we do that first with ourselves, and then we start to share it with each other. So I think, at the end of the day, when I look at all this stuff going down, and you see people saying, "Oh, well, they've already been hung in Gitmo and Guantanamo Bay, or this or that or whatever. We're going to see justice." I mean, they arrest Prince Andrew and he's out 6 hours later. Come on, man. These are the crumbs. Feed them crumbs, right? You know what I mean? It's the Stockholm syndrome. So the point is, it's all pointing us back to ourselves. And there's some type of simultaneous spiritual, scientific, soulful reaction that happens when I come. Well, I can say it like this: when I come into a higher love for myself, I immediately have it for you. Okay, it just works that
Yeah.
way. This is the oneness in action, but it takes this personal integrity, this honest, brutal honesty, as my soul used to tell me, the brutal honesty of the soul. I'm going to tell you straight up, dude. Well, this is what's happening. So it's a special time, and I think there's to just kind of conclude it, that it's having the love and the compassion for all the players, every single one of them, because
Yeah.
God doesn't create shit. You know what I mean? Like they used to say, God doesn't make junk, right? So
Yeah.
either you believe it all is one and the same, or you don't. You can't tell the universe, well, you know what? I'm in 100% unity and oneness, except for that little corner over there. That I've got nothing to do with that. I'm separate from it. Now that might work in this realm, okay, from the distortion and the conditioning, but this realm is transforming, and it's not going to work any longer. And this is going to put us all on the same playing field. And I believe we're in for a tremendous ride, but it's going to be an interesting evolution over the next few months. Anyway, it's been a pleasure. I'll see you when I see you again, and that'll either be on this side, the other side, or both. Hopefully it'll be both. And who knows? Maybe we'll run into each other again if I decide to head out of here. Somebody asked me, and thank you for asking, are you okay? News on YouTube doesn't look good much of anywhere in Mexico. I'm about 20 miles from the extent that I know of anyway of what's going on. I'm just about 40 miles north of Puerto Vallarta Airport, and from what I can tell, the stuff that's happening is in another state, because about 20 miles from here you cross over into the state I'm in, and although we're under the red alert here and nobody is on the streets, which is pretty weird, it's pretty eerie. This isn't like COVID lockdown. This is like crickets out there. But yeah, I'm going to keep manning the station, and in fact, I was just thinking today when this was going on, I'm doing a couple shows a day, but I'm thinking as this continues, I'm going to just keep jumping on here, playing videos, clips, music, and just, keeping the fire going. You know what I mean? Because I think it's important
Ramp it
for
up.
people have access to this band of frequencies that all the crazy people that aren't crazy anymore have come to join. And so many people and I know, and brothers and sisters all over this world. So thank you for coming in, brother. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for the two shows today. And you'll probably see me back a little bit later tonight playing some music, maybe doing some rap. We'll see what happens, all right? Take care.
All right, man. Peace.
Peace out.